Thank you so much for being here, and let's get started. Um, Hello from Philadelphia. My name is JJ, and I'm right over here in West Philly. And I know that y'all are coming at us from a couple different directions. But we're here to talk about this strange city and its wild border and what it means to walk around it. Philadelphia is obviously a construct. It's an idea. There are probably as many ideas of Philadelphia as there are people on the planet, certainly as there are citizens in this city. It is a large and wild shape. I used to think of Philly a lot in terms of the areas that I lived in. The skyline, tall buildings are over here. I went to university in West Philly. I sort of lived out this way. I lived over by Front Girard. I worked at a brunch place in South Philly. And I thought I knew Philly pretty well until I walked all the way around it and realized that this little skyline area or historic district, the original city plan that was drawn here on what was, of course, originally land that the Lenape people have called home for a long time before anyone had the name Philadelphia. But at some point, William Penn drew out a plan for a little square city. At its axis was Market Street and Broad Street, which now extend all the way up to here and all the way out to here. And the border is defined by waterways like Cobb's and Darby Creek and the Delaware River, the Quetzing Creek, which is off the map here, and the Coney Creek, and then also the Schuylkill River. And then there's all these straight lines, wavy lines, slightly angled by 5-degree lines. It is a wild and strange shape with a lot of things waiting for us as we set out to explore it. Quick version of the origin story of the walk is that it came out of an artist residency in 2016. It was supposed to be a 5-day project. It was the most joyous week of my life. Has become an 8-year project and growing, and has gone from 4 of us in 2016 to now several hundred people setting out to explore the perimeter of the city, some through events that I've organized and some on their own, which is kind of wonderful. We're building a little Camino to Philadelphia, and I'm really delighted by it. The principles of participating in the walk are pretty straightforward. We set out for the border of the city, and we stay as close to the perimeter as possible. You have to decide if you're going clockwise or counterclockwise, left or right. And from there, it's stay as close as possible to the border within reason, prioritizing safety, looking out for each other, treating everyone and everything that you encounter with respect. From there, it's adventures unfold. The city comes to meet us with surprises. There's the border of the city itself being a sort of boundary, but then we navigate the obstacles and borders that might be in our way, like fences, train tracks, creeks, bridges, all sorts of things. Our path is sometimes pretty close to the perimeter, and sometimes it wavers far from it. Sometimes, like right up this way, we run to a place where the perimeter goes straight through someone's house. Just this past February, because it happened to be President's Day, a woman with a historic house up this way by Pine Road was in her yard with her kiddos, and we got to speak to her and learn a little bit that, yes, she's well aware that the border goes right through her house, and it makes getting some stuff done kind of hard. But she pays all her taxes to not Philadelphia, and her kids go to school in not Philadelphia. So there's a lot of interesting things about what is in, what is out, what is Philly, what is not Philly. And Philly is multitudes, right? Philly is parks, and Philly is toxic waste sites, and Philly is scrapyards, and Philly is prisons, and Philly is farms with cows and horses, and so many more things. Recent discoveries from the most recent perimeter walk, including the fact that Philadelphia is also has like quasi-volcanic looking like Hawaiian lava flow beaches on the upper Delaware, where an old cement factory just poured its excess cement into the side of the river and made this sort of like concrete swirls of land. We encountered a lot of wonderful surprises this time around. We also encountered some heavier surprises. It's the way of the walk. 11 times in, it hasn't stopped surprising me. I'd love to invite some other voices into the space because I can do a lot of talking about this thing. I love this project. But I would also love to maybe invite one or two of you who are out there who've done some of the walk to share a little bit about why you've participated in the walk and what you've gotten out of it. And then I'll invite you to keep that concise, sentence or three, and then maybe pass it on to someone else. If you're game for sharing a little bit, just raise your hand. The person who's sharing will pass it on to you next. So I'll be like, okay, JJ, would you like to go? And then JJ, once you've chatted, you can be like, great, next person, would you like to share? I might invite, Graham, would you be willing to jump in?
Sure, JJ. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks for doing this today. You know, it's been an interesting journey for me. We've talked a little bit about this, and I've told this story before, but I first met JJ in the Leadership Philadelphia program, and I was just doing the math on this. I think you must have just done about 2 walks. It must have been very early in your program, because I graduated out of that in 2017. So you would just have done, I guess, 1 or 2 perambulations of the city by then. So, and then I forgot, unfortunately, I confess, I forgot all about it. And then guess what? I came across one of those stickers that JJ is very fond of putting on just about everything that's not moving. And it was just around the corner from my from where I live on Northwestern Avenue. And I guess it was during the pandemic. Yeah, it would have been, because I wouldn't normally have taken that route. And I thought, I'm going to check that out. You know, that sounds like something fun to do in the pandemic. So I joined up, not knowing what to expect, had no idea, just jumped in, and it was just extraordinary. I mean, I really had such a blast on that first segment that I came back, signed up for 2 more, and never looked back. This time around, I managed to do 2, I think 3 total, 2 back to back. So I have no idea how JJ manages to do consecutive days with the frequency that he does. But I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but how transformative has this been? Extraordinary. I mean, there's so many layers. I find, yes, there's walking around the city, getting to see places you haven't seen before, but the people you walk with, you would never run into, probably, all different walks of life. I had most extraordinary conversations with folks going around, and every single time, as JJ says, the walk is different. You could do the same stretch of walk, but every time it's going to be different. The weather's going to be different. The people are going to be different. You know, the road itself is going to have obstacles. Maybe it's going to be different in the winter as it would be in the summer. So I'm looking forward to doing some more in September, and at some point, because I like challenges, I like to be able to do the entire perimeter, not all at once, but I've got 5 segments down. I'll be looking forward to doing the others.
Is there anyone else? Ooh, I've got feedback. Sorry. Is there anyone else out there who'd like to jump in with something from their experience on the walk? Go for it, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to be brief in the spirit of what you asked, JJ. I've walked, I think, 4 different kind of iterations of the walk. But the first time I did it, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and I chose across the 6 days to do the entire perimeter, which was ridiculous. It's so tiring. The fact that we do it now in shorter segments is really wonderful. But there was something about the walk for me that was very much like a Camino, to go back to what you said. It's 120 miles, and to do it all in one go in the winter, you have the opportunity to chat with people, but you also have lots of time to sort of walk quietly and just be thoughtful and reflective, and that balance is really wonderful.
Thanks, Greg. Matilda, do you want to jump in and tell us a little bit of something about your two different experiences on the perimeter along the way?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, Greg, just to speak to the tiring part, I've done like one day, I've done now four different segments during 3 different walk iterations. And I do one day and it completely wipes me out. And then I wake up like in the morning and I'm like, JJ's already awake, back out, just still walking around. And so I'm in awe of JJ's endurance and ability to do it so continuously. But each of my experiences have been so unique, and I'm so grateful for how different they have been and how different the groups of people have been. And I just did a walk, I guess it was a weekish ago, and we were along the Pequesing Creek, and the snowdrops have come up, the little like, are they crocuses? They're not crocuses, but they come up in springtime, and it's obviously not spring yet, but if you're in Philadelphia, there's a lot of things that are prematurely blooming, and we just got to see like meadows and meadows of snowdrops, and it was unbelievable because I'm never up there in the Northeast, and got to see a very special seasonal or not seasonal experience there.
Super cool. Thank you, Matilda. Sam, do you want to jump in?
Sorry, was having trouble finding the mute button. Hello, everybody. My name is Sam. I first learned about this project because I am one of an expansive group of Osage alumni roommates of JJ. So my participation has been walking 2 different segments, 2 different years, and then I believe it was last year, but the pandemic has flattened my perception of time. Participated in a fun way of like bringing tea and cookies to participants that were walking that day. I wished that I could make it work this year because the smaller segments and going the other way was very appealing. But just to touch on something that something that I learned about, throughout my different segments, to echo Greg, who is actually one of my co-walkers, one of my segments, you really just have really great conversations with people. I remember a picnic where we were kind of discussing like end of life planning and just culture of death, and like who talks about that with people you just met that day. But it fosters that sense of community. And also, I know this is something that JJ talks about a lot, is privilege for people participating in these walks. Like obviously I am a white person, and navigating spaces where we've had to like break out of a random car parking lot thing for a dealership that we didn't break into, but ended up in and had to break out of. So it's just been interesting, kind of navigating that idea of privilege too.
Thank you, Sam. And maybe we'll close it out with Rebecca. You want to have anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, thanks, JJ. Hi, everyone. My name is Becca. My pronouns are she, her, and I found out about the walk in 2021 when it was listed as an activity for the Fringe Festival. I moved to Philadelphia in 2008, and I got into street photography. I really just liked exploring, and seeing this event kind of brought back that idea of just exploring, and also a way to not be cooped up during the pandemic. And I did a walk from Fox Chase to Somerset. My partner is from the north, or from like Jenkintown kind of area outside the northeast section of the city. And to physically walk that boundary and to see, I always knew his suburb was like the nice suburb, and then you have the northeast, and then you have what we know as Philly. So to walk that boundary was really eye-opening. We actually brought a friend that moved to Philly from Brooklyn. So it was like she didn't have a concept of what Philadelphia was either. So that was really cool to kind of show her like, oh, this is Philly. So, and then to just like hear how the neighborhoods and how they change, how that compares to neighborhoods in New York. And then, yeah, the privilege part too. I mean, I'm white presenting, but I'm also a female, and to be able to do that walk, I find that it's nice that there is a group to do that with, because there are certain sections where I would not feel comfortable on my feet. I do bike everywhere in the city, but not on my feet. So having that opportunity to do that was something that I was really grateful for.
Thanks, Becca. And yes, there's a lot of questions about privilege and accessibility. I'm glad you both brought that up. When we first did the walk, we were 4 white folks with a Knight Foundation grant, right? And we talked about the fact that, as we came out of, the woods onto the golf course or stumbled into the industrial facility rail yards, we might be received differently than other people might be received, as we've seen in our world. So as I share the walk with others, for me, it's not just about doing the walk myself, it's also about inviting others to do the walk. It's also about building a world where all of our neighbors could do the walk safely and accessibly, right? And that happens both within the walk itself and also just in how we're shaping the world together. There's a lot of work to be done there, as we know. Quick, just running you through the evolution of this thing for those of you who are newish to the walk. You might have found your way by seeing one of these stickers. Here you go, Kathy. These are the stickers that we made during the Fringe, during the first pandemic. I've put a bunch of them around the city, but so have lots of other participants. They are both our trailblazers and our invitations. The first year we did the walk, it was so exciting. We did a storytelling performance at the Philadelphia History Museum that instantly sold out. It was free, but at capacity. Added another night, instantly sold out. And then I did it on my own again. This is a project that's got attention from the get-go. People got excited about this idea. And I started inviting other friends, opened it up to my mailing list. And the first, this is February 2020, one of our biggest groups parading out of the airport on foot. It's definitely not made for pedestrian egress. But just this thing of circumnavigating the city and the kind of magic that it holds and what you encounter along the way. Then the pandemic hit and we organized I organized a organize your own pod, choose your own adventure. I'm going to send you out. So you're going to get supplies like this, like the stickers, like the passport. And groups, including a group of homeschooled high school students, went off to do it on their own. This is me with a couple of my housemates. This is another one of the groups that organized their own pod. This was sort of one of the few pandemic safe small group activities where everyone did their own walks and then we talked about it on Zoom, kind of like we are this evening. Here's the first group of homeschooled high school students on their last leg, and like what learning to encounter the city, to encounter the roadkill, the places where the dumpsters live. Here they are at the finish line when they completed it, wearing their stylish red shirts. Yes, I don't have good infrastructure, but yes, you can get a stylish Walk Around Philadelphia t-shirt. Just be in touch with me. We have many sizes available, or come to one of the next events. We kept on doing it. This is 2021 when Greg walked through the snow. I put the link in the chat, but that was an epic, epic snow and ice year. When sometimes Philadelphia, Becca, this is the same part we walked, just FYI. This is when Philadelphia looks like Antarctica. But it's very different in different weather, it turns out. Continuing our way around through the snow. One of the evolutions that came out of the walk was that I was invited by the Paideia program at University of Pennsylvania to facilitate a retreat, where when we brought together students, divvied them up into teams with faculty and staff, talked about the border, talked about the project, sent them out in small groups to explore the city to different starting points so that in one day they collectively circumnavigated the entire city in one day, covering a lot of different terrain in some different weather on a sweltering hot day with some of us got thunderstorms. And then coming back and presenting the city to each other, annotating maps, responding to prompts. It was a really rich retreat experience. So this is a thing I've done twice now that I'm looking to find other partners and organizations to come in and bring their organizations to facilitate this kind of experience. And then by the next Fringe Festival, pandemic was easing up a little bit. So we were able to bring groups together to walk together outside. And so we did 2 different start times was the way I was inviting more people in while kind of managing to keep smaller intimate groups. We had one group, they would walk an hour later, right after these adventurers went off into the woods. An hour later, I met up with Jane. We had a pair of us walk for a little bit, different groups at different times and different sizes, sending them off with reflective safety belts and first aid kits. And we've just kind of continued with this adventure going forth. Now we've kind of jumped up. Sharing snacks is a very important part of this ritual, incidentally. And so these are some of the things we encounter along the way. And here's Sam delivering tea off in the northeast at Benjamin Rush State Park. This is another wonderful way that walkers have begun to sort of come back and circle into the walk by supporting other people along the way, by showing up with snacks or chipping in to provide stipends for people who need financial support to participate. I'm really excited to see community growing around this project in this wild city of ours. The people we meet along the way on the Delaware River or at Graffiti Pier, the developments we see as the city keeps on changing, the conversations and adventures we have. So this part right here, this is walking around, actually, oh, and how the city changes, even things you think are permanent. This is my permanent installation of my photographs at the Philadelphia International Airport. It's been there for a decade. It's not there anymore, it just came down. So what is permanent is not along the way. And we learn maybe why you shouldn't eat the contaminated fish at the Hines Wildlife Refuge, because just upstream is a Superfund toxic waste site. One of the other things that came out of the walk this past year, there's been a lot that happened this past year, was a printmaking project through a small residency with the Penn Program in Environmental Humanities and the Independent Seaport Museum. I had an opportunity to do a small project. I made it into a big project, surprise, surprise, where I took on 2 new media of printmaking, where we overlaid the border of the city onto the watershed. Water, mind you, doesn't care about borders, it just flows downhill. And so there's something really interesting about taking this map of the watershed and physically yourself pulling a print where you add that red line and you add that border and you declare what is and what is not within Philadelphia. It's a really interesting exercise, and this is a fun way for people to make their own piece of art and also plug into the project and think about this border experience without having to walk a pile of miles out in the world. The printmaking workshops are really fun to do. We'll be doing one more on April 1st at the closing event over at the Schuylkill Center for Environmental Education, so you're invited to that. I love the different ways that people plug into this project here. Yelena, in this photo, saw a sticker on the Upper Delaware, went online and saw the recording of our panel discussion, came to the printmaking event at the Seaport Museum, later brought their partner to do a walk around the southern edge of the city, and now has a print of the northern border in the exhibit at the Schuylkill Center. The other different media that came out of that residency little micro grant was a carpentry project where we made a sign. Thank you to Andy and Michael and everyone who helped me with this. A sign, this is my pandemic quarantine project when I finally caught COVID of doing all the sign painting. This is now semi-permanently installed outside of Independent Seaport Museum on Penn's Landing. What I love about this sign, it highlights in yellow educational centers, in green parks and green spaces. In blue, we have water features like the rivers and tributaries, but we also have the water treatment plants, places you don't think about so much. And then in orange, we have some industrial sites and the Superfund waste sites, places that, again, aren't advertised that much. And then there's this invitation to just do what you're already doing on Penn's Landing, which is walking the border of the city. This is what happens if you go maybe 100 miles further. What do you encounter along the way beyond the most commonly frequented spots? And that sign's just up there by the ice cream truck. So I invite you to take a picture with it next time you are over on Penn's Landing by Independent Seaport Museum. Another thing that came last year was we organized our first panel discussion. This is a really sweet gathering. We brought together friends from Cobbs Creek Ambassadors, the Schuylkill Center for Environmental Education, and Riverfront North Partnership to talk about access to nature at the city's edge. Cobbs Creek Ambassadors are an all-volunteer cleanup group. The Schuylkill Center is a long-established environmental center, and Riverfront North has been around in between building new trails for access to the river on the Upper Delaware. So really interesting kind of conversations to have. And this is sort of a way to get into the questions we have as we walk by all these sites. You know, an important part of the walk is that it not be a guided tour, that there's not some other authority. We all bring our own authority of what we know and what we've lived to the walk that one day. But we walk by all these places we have questions about. So this is an opportunity to start to learn about some of those places we've walked through. So keep an eye out for more invitations like that along the way. Again, it's another way to plug into this project that doesn't require long walks. It was also really sweet that we had City Council member Kendra Brooks joined for that event. This has been Nice last year to see elected representatives plug into this project. Councilmember Gautier came and walked with us in September. Then councilmember and now mayoral candidate Helen Gim came to our Cherry Street Pier closing event. And along the way, many voices are being lifted up. This is a book of essays about walking that includes an essay by me, an essay by my original perimeter walking pal, Anne DeForest, but also includes an essay by someone who's a Syrian refugee and a truck driver, has a different experience of walking than I might. A lot of different perspectives in this essay we just had in this anthology from New Door Books. I'd invite you to pick up a copy. You can pick up a copy at the Schuylkill Center if you go check out our exhibit that's there right now. I've got a little blitz more photos. I'm gonna go a little faster. Here's Councilmember Gautier joining us in September. This is just sort of a look at what you encounter when you go to do the walk. Here's another snack break in September. We had a sort of surprise impromptu birthday party on the walk. Someone's partner joined them and brought us snacks. Here's some of the unfoldings in September up around the northeastern parts of the city with our different groups, sharing of snacks and helping each other along the way, navigating some obstacles, sharing more snacks, even going into the mall to have more snacks. It's a very snack positive experience. Highlight of this past year has been finding these posts where municipal workers have gone and painted over all the graffiti except for around our stickers. This happens in several different places around the perimeter. For me, it's just a sweet sign of like this project landing and connecting with people. Taking breaks along the way, encountering trash along the way. There's places we might not want to go into, like that spot. Here's State Rep Joe Hohenstein. Our group with Bonnie ran into him here at the Bridesburg Park and invited him into the project. He later came to our event in December, came to the exhibit at the Schuylkill Center, and then he and his chief of staff joined us for 2 days of walking in the rain in the mud a couple weeks ago. What was super exciting was that he actually was inspired by the exhibit at the Schuylkill Center to organize a 5-day walk around his whole district and walked with different community partners around different parts of his district, and then joined us to do the leg up the Delaware River. And there's a lot to see on the Delaware River, including the parts where cars and shopping carts were sunken in the muck. Here's another sign that someone has kindly avoided painting over our stickers. More up that way, coming into Graffiti Pier, where there's new developments at North Bank, new trails, places we've walked by a million times, but sort of stumbled into by accident this time. Finding our way down for our photo ops, coming down the southern edge of the city, down towards the Navy Yard, by our shipyards, by Windy Point, finding our way through to the Navy Yard, the airport. This is where my two biggest projects coincide in physical space. I love this, the How Philly Moves mural at Philadelphia International Airport. This is sort of one of its many walls with the walkers in front of it. Both projects celebrate the city in very different ways, and there's a spot where they hit because the airport is on the perimeter, which I kind of love. Finding our way around the airport on the actual line. If you zoom in, the perimeter line does very weird things across the runway. We can't quite climb the fences and go across the runway, so we go usually the long way around the airport, where we encounter some interesting magic driftwood beaches, some strange plumbing, occasionally get caught in a storm with ominous clouds and get a little wet, and that's part of the joy of it. It's really interesting to come into the airport having walked there 10 or so miles, finding our way through and out into Hines, where the park rangers have some information to share with us, into Eastwick, where some of the neighbors tell us, whoa, you go all the way to Northeast Philly? It's scary up there. And it's like, oh, that's funny. That's what Northeast Philly thinks about Southwest Philly. Interesting to circumnavigate the city. And then we came to Cherry Street Pier, where we did an event in October, coming together to share notes, compare experiences. It's great to have Helen Gim join us there. We even did some temporary tattoos, fun things about this shape, and some more printmaking. Really great to have help from the Soapbox Community Print Studio and Common Press at Penn help us with this printmaking project. And that brings us to the exhibit at the Schuylkill Center, which is sort of in partnership with the walk. It's called Walking the Edge. It has over 100 artists represented, along with a video montage some of you saw a little clip of earlier. along with a lot of different work, from quilts to an elaborate, detailed, hand-painted map of the city on silk, every street painted by hand, to things that come more directly from the perimeter walk, a lot of photographs, some artist books, some written things. You can really keep pretty busy in there. So it's up for another month. I definitely invite you to check it out. Get up to the Schuylkill Center. There's 4 miles of hiking trails there. You can bike there straight on the Schuylkill River Trail. The exhibit's up through April 1st. And it was a real joy to sort of see all the work represented there and have people be able to plug into the walk in this new and different way as well. I've also had some sweet press coverage that's come up in St. Joe's student newspaper, the Chestnut Hill Local, the Roxborough Review. Thank you to Billy Penn for giving us a shout out in their email this morning. And that's a lot right there. So I'm going to stop the screen share because I've been babbling and rambling. And so I would love to take a moment to step back from being the facilitator, center of attention person, and I'd like to do what we do on the walks. Once the walks are underway, I step back and I'm not in charge anymore. I'd like to invite y'all to get to know each other a little more via some breakout rooms. We're going to have a little bit of time for y'all to connect with each other, compare notes. I'd invite you to talk about your experiences on the walk, your connections to this project, borders and boundaries in general, lessons you've learned about the land that you live around, or surprises you've encountered while walking. As we go into these breakout rooms, I'll invite you to practice the step up, step back thing, which is if you're the person who's excited to share and talk and might just monopolize all the airspace, I invite you to step back, not jump in with your first thought, but maybe listen and give other people space. If you're the person who's like, oh, we're going into breakout rooms, I'm gonna have to talk. I was really happy sitting here just listening. Then the challenge for you is to maybe be vulnerable, maybe speak up, maybe jump in and share first thing. We'll hold everything we hear with confidentiality. That space will not be recorded, and with respect. And does that sound good for everyone? We're going to go into, we'll give you 15 minutes. We'll call you back a little before then. And I am grateful for y'all being here and jumping into this conversation. So off to the breakout rooms. Thank you for being here.